How many photos do you take a day? How many of those photos would you hang in your home? What even makes a good photograph? Well, a good photograph should make the viewer feel some kind of emotion. Today, I will walk you through the steps of taking a good photograph using a DSLR camera. I'm a self-taught photographer who has had no formal training, but I've always had a strong passion for photography, so I decided to learn more about it. Through watching videos online and doing research on DSLR cameras, I've learned how to take good photographs and have even begun the process of starting my own photography business. As Brown stated in 2013, humanity takes millions of photos a day. Yet, how many are memorable? We all want good photographs, whether it's to hang in our homes or to remember important moments in our lives. So in order to take a good photograph using a DSLR camera, you should become acquainted with your owner's manual and get familiar with the different functions of your camera. We will then go over how to choose the correct settings and composition. Let's get started by taking out our owner's manual. Spend time reading the manual and get familiar with the different functions of your camera. It's a good idea to have your camera with you while you're reading the manual so you have something to reference. You'll quickly be able to learn the basics, turning the camera on, turning it off, where the SD card goes, where the battery goes, what the button does what, and so on and so forth. Once you have the basics down, you'll want to focus on how to use the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO. ISO measures the sensitivity of the digital image sensor to light. Shutter speed is how long the shutter stays open, and aperture controls how much light enters the lens. Let us put our newfound knowledge to use. So to get the best results, you'll want to put the camera in manual mode. This will allow you to control each setting to your liking. It's important that you get familiar with how to use the settings in different lighting. Photography is all about light, so it's important to understand how to use the right settings for your environment. For example, right now I'm indoors in a pretty decent lighting. I'll set my camera to an f-stop of 2, which will let in a lot of light. My ISO to about 400 and my shutter speed to 1/60th of a second. Rouse explains that you should choose a shutter speed with a denominator that is larger than the focal length of the lens. So my lens is a 50mm lens, so I wouldn't want to go anywhere under 1/60th of a second. So I'll take a picture with these settings and I'll show it to you. And you'll see that the lighting is very good. It's nice and bright, but it's not overexposed, and everything is nice and sharp. Then I'll change my f-stop only to an f-stop of 5, and I'll take a picture. And you will see that it's very dark. It's underexposed. So it's important to know what settings you need to have for the lighting that you have. Now that we've have our settings in a good spot, we'll need to make sure that we have good composition. Always make sure your photo is framed nicely. That doesn't mean go out and buy a nice picture frame. That means make sure when you're composing your shot, everything that should be in the shot is. Be sure that heads aren't cut off and everything is level. There's a general rule of thirds that photographers use. Darren Rouse of Digital Photography School explains the rule of thirds as a basis for well-balanced and interesting shots. So imagine dividing your image into thirds, horizontally and vertically. You'll have a grid of 9 parts. Usually when you place your subject in the intersections or along the grid lines, your photo will be better balanced and more interesting. So I'll take one using the rule of thirds. And you'll see that it's very visually stimulating. Then I'll take one that's just centered, and you'll see that it's not very stimulating. The first one is a lot more visually stimulating than the second. Once you have your shot lined up, press down the shutter speed and you've successfully taken a good photograph using a DSLR camera. To recap, we've learned that in order to take a good photograph using a DSLR camera, you need to familiarize yourself with the owner's manual and the different functions of the camera. Adjust your settings accordingly to your lighting and your subject and compose the shot. And remember, practice, practice, practice. Now you should never have to take an unmemorable photograph ever again.